Welcome back to MHS Midnight Horror Stories. I know that many of you come to these videos as a gentle way to unwind before drifting off to sleep. So, before you close your eyes tonight, could I ask you for one small favor? Just leave me a quick interaction, a comment, a like, or maybe share where you're watching from and what time it is for you. Little actions like that help YouTube recognize the content and spread it to more people who might enjoy it. My current goal is to reach around 300 likes within the first 24 hours. Now then, let's step into tonight's chilling stories together. I'm Alan, and I've been hauling freight across the Midwest for 10 years. I usually work the night shift because the pay is better and the roads are emptier. Driving in the dark through desolate areas, I've witnessed all kinds of strange things, from deer frozen in my headlights and hitchhikers to UFO sightings. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened that night, that winter in rural Ohio. That night, around 2 a.m., I was delivering a shipment of coffee and pastries to a Dunkin' Donuts located off a highway exit. Cold wind whistled through the truck's crevices, accompanied by dusting of snow. As I maneuvered my large truck around to the back of the building to park, the lot was empty. There was only the dim light from the drive-through service window. As my truck's headlights swept across the roadside curb ahead, I spotted her. A woman huddled in the snow, knees pressed to her chest, rocking slightly, her breath forming white clouds. She was wearing shorts and a tank top, clothing completely inadequate for the biting cold of a Midwest winter. Truck drivers learned to react quickly, and I knew full well that in the middle of the night in a secluded place, a solitary woman could mean trouble. I turned off the engine and slipped the cheap stun gun I bought online into my pocket. When I jumped out of the cab, she didn't look up until I was about 10 feet away. That's when I saw the dark stains on her shorts. Before I could say a word, she sprang to her feet. Her eyes were wild, like a cornered animal. Her voice was shrill, echoing in the dead of night. "My boyfriend stabbed me in the butt." After saying that, she began pacing back and forth, clapping her hands against her hips, and repeatedly shouting the sentence, "He stabbed me right in the butt. Can you believe it, my own boyfriend?" I paused for a moment and then responded, "Whoa, easy there, miss," I said, holding up my hands as if calming a frightened horse. "Are you okay? You don't look good. Do you need any help?" She continued to pace, mumbling something I couldn't make out. Then, she spoke louder. "Stabbed me in the butt. Yes. That's what he did right there." She turned around, pointing behind her, her voice growing harsher as she accused her boyfriend. She said he was crazy, and she had only cheated once a week and kept calling her boyfriend a jealous bastard for stabbing her. I immediately pulled out my phone and called 911. I reported to the operator that I was at the Dunkin' Donuts off Route 42 near Millersburg, and there was a woman who said her boyfriend stabbed her and needed immediate medical attention. Hearing me call the police, the woman stopped, tilting her head as if to listen. Her expression shifted to one of seriousness, and her voice dropped. "Are you calling the police? Mostly EMTs. Sit down, okay? You're hurt, and help is on the way." I explained while trying to shield the phone slightly, but her attitude became hostile. She introduced herself as Emily and explained that her boyfriend had stopped the car at the gas station after an argument. He took a knife from the glove compartment and bam, right in the cheek of the butt. I urged her to sit down because she was bleeding, but she refused. The operator asked me if she was under the influence of any substances. I asked, "Emily, have you taken any drugs or anything tonight?" Her eyes narrowed and her attitude changed completely. She stopped pacing and looked straight into my eyes. "This isn't my blood. and it might just be yours." She said I had made a big mistake by calling the police and threatened, "I'll stab you in the butt or worse." Without waiting, I quickly backed up, yanked open the cab door, jumped in, slammed the door shut, and locked it just as she pounded on the window. "Open up. You think you're safe in there?" I quickly reported to the operator that she was threatening me and that the blood was not hers. After one more pound on the door, Emily turned her back and ran straight across the parking lot into the adjacent field of tall grass. I started the engine, shining my headlights to follow her. She glanced back at me once, her face twisted in rage, and disappeared into the thick woods a few hundred yards away. The darkness quickly swallowed her. I sat in my truck, the stun gun gripped tightly in my hand, until I saw flashing blue lights in my mirror. 2 police cars pulled into the parking lot. I confirmed I was the caller and told them the girl had run into the woods in that direction. An officer shone his flashlight onto the curb, where there were streaks of fresh blood. They made me wait in the truck while they searched. EMTs also arrived but had no one to treat. It wasn't until dawn that the sheriff's deputy returned with a serious expression. He said there was no sign of the girl. The woods were too dense, and she could be miles from the main road. "You believe me, right?" I asked, my voice hoarse from fatigue and tension. I pointed to the bloodstain clearly visible on the ground, emphasizing, "The blood is right there. You can check it yourself." He sighed, saying they had collected a blood sample and would check missing persons reports and domestic violence cases. I spent the next hour recounting everything. Finally, I asked, "Do you think she killed someone?" The officer shrugged. "It's possible. The blood will tell us more." The police let me leave after finishing the report. When I delivered the goods to the Dunkin' Donuts manager, he looked at me in astonishment, saying he had heard screaming and police sirens all night but didn't dare step outside. I just nodded, saying nothing more. Afterward, I climbed back into the cab, started the engine, and silently hit the road. But the image of Emily wouldn't leave me. Her huddled figure by the roadside, her wild eyes, her voice both pleading and threatening. It all kept replaying in my head. I'm Katie, and I've been a bank teller for 8 years. I've handled many situations, from angry customers to identity fraudsters. But there's one winter afternoon a few years ago that I've never forgotten. Now, every time I hear the beep from the ATM in the lobby, I still involuntarily shiver. It was a weekday around 12 p.m., a time we jokingly called dead time. Transactions were almost non-existent, and customers were sparse. I was standing at my counter when a middle-aged man walked in. He was wearing a Taco Bell delivery uniform and carrying a paper bag. He approached my counter, said nothing, and simply handed me a piece of paper. The content on it made my blood run cold. "I have a bomb. I want $250,000 in 15 minutes if you want to live. Follow the steps, otherwise I will detonate it now." I looked up. Around his neck was a heavy black box-shaped device with wires and blinking red lights. He wasn't yelling or aggressive. On the contrary, he was incredibly calm. So calm that while waiting for me to process the transaction, he reached out and took a lollipop from the customer waiting jar. I honestly thought it was just a scare tactic. The thing he was wearing around his neck was a fake device. Some guy with mental issues or overwhelming debt. But what if it wasn't fake? I followed the emergency procedure exactly. The vault was locked by time delay then, so I could only give him a little over $8,000 in cash from my drawer. He took the money, said nothing else, and left calmly. Before he could exit the bank, the police swarmed in. I later learned they had received a call from a customer who had secretly slipped out to report the situation. Everything proceeded slowly and under control. They asked everyone to evacuate the bank silently. My colleagues, customers, and I were all evacuated, leaving only the robber trapped inside, along with 2 officers keeping watch from a corner of the room. His hands were cuffed and locked to a fixed waiting chair in the lobby. The bomb squad was on the way. I and a few colleagues hadn't left the area entirely. We stayed outside to monitor the situation. I could see him through the bank's glass windows. He still had that calm demeanor. He even leaned his head against the wall, as if taking a nap. I saw an officer standing near him say something, but he just shrugged and nodded in a kind of defiant way. What makes a person with a bomb strapped to them so calm? But a few minutes later, I saw him start to change. His eyes darted around constantly. His eyes widened in disbelief. Then he started to scream. The police quickly withdrew from the building, leaving him alone in the room. I stood frozen outside the door. Through the glass window, I saw him struggling in the locked chair. He kicked hard at the floor, as if trying to stand up, but his hands were still cuffed. Why is it counting down? Please, help me. Do something. We heard him yell. That was his last sentence. A massive explosion sounded, and we all ducked and covered our heads. I was stunned by what had just happened. A few minutes later, I heard the police radioing each other. The robber had passed away. Everything that followed, I only learned through the investigation report and the news. His name was Joey Garcia, 46, a Taco Bell delivery driver. He initially told the police he was forced to do this. He claimed someone had strapped the bomb to him and ordered him to rob the bank. Joey recounted that while on a delivery route, a customer lured him into a house, tied his hands, secured the bomb around his neck, and forced him to commit the robbery. He called it a sick game. But I remembered when he stood in front of me, handing over the note with a calm face, then casually taking a lollipop. He didn't look scared at all, not like someone being forced. While waiting for the bomb squad, the police noticed his relaxed attitude. With a casual air, he even told a guarding officer in an amused tone, "Don't worry, it won't go off. I'm not that easy to kill." But then, the device started to beep after a few minutes, slowly at first, then distinctly faster. Joey froze for a few seconds. His eyes were wide open. Then he began to panic. Why is it beeping? I didn't set a timer. This isn't real. It's not real. The police looked at each other for exactly 1 second. They didn't need to ask anything more. Immediately, according to protocol, everyone quickly withdrew, leaving Joey sitting alone. Joey began to scream. Why is it counting down? Do something, please. Save me. He struggled futilely. At exactly 3:18 p.m., the bomb exploded. The explosion wasn't very loud, nor powerful enough to damage anything nearby, even at close range. But it was sufficient to create a deep hole right in Joey's chest. He died instantly. He died by the very bomb he was carrying, something no one expected. But the truth about the bomb and the bank robbery was even more shocking. Joey Garcia had lied. No one forced him. It was all planned and executed by him alone. He went onto the dark web, bought the components and casing for the device. The transaction was made with his last borrowed money. The package was advertised as a fake bomb, but extremely realistic. Except, it turned out to be a real bomb. The control circuit was pre-rigged with a small amount of explosive, enough to kill one person. Perhaps he didn't even know that. He thought he was playing a game, pretending to be a victim, and would run away with the money. But it all ended that afternoon. The investigation determined that Joey was a heavy drug user, addicted to gambling and drowning in debt. In 1 year, he had been fired from 3 different jobs. The robbery that day wasn't a spontaneous act. It was the culmination of months of being out of control, coupled with a decision so wrong there was no turning back. After going through the incident, people often ask me if I was scared. At first, I felt disgust, then anger, and now, it's an unnamed void. A person walking into a bank with a bomb is something I had only seen in movies. But that time, I wasn't just watching. I witnessed it all. And since that day, whenever I stand near an ATM and hear that beep, I shiver. I'm David, a senior majoring in architecture at a university in Columbus, Ohio. That summer, instead of heading home, I chose to stick around the city to work and save up some cash for next school year. One weekend night in late July, my roommate Marcus dragged me along to a friend's party at a mansion out in the Cincinnati suburbs. I wasn't big on crowded parties, especially with a bunch of strangers, but Marcus wouldn't let it go. Eventually, I gave in. The house hosting the party was in a pretty upscale neighborhood full of big, classic Victorian homes. The Miller family's mansion, where the party was happening, was easily one of the most impressive around. 3 stories high, huge windows, and a sharply pitched roof. Right from the second I stepped inside, I felt uneasy. The pounding music, dim lighting, and a sea of unfamiliar faces quickly gave me a splitting headache. After struggling for about an hour to blend in, my head felt even worse. I decided to look for somewhere quiet to get away from the chaos. The first floor was too loud, so I quietly slipped upstairs to the second floor. The hallway up there was dark and still, the only sound coming from the muffled music downstairs. I slowly made my way down the hall, hoping to find an empty room or a bathroom to catch my breath. At the end of the corridor, there was another narrow staircase leading up to the 3rd floor. I climbed up. It seemed like nobody ever used the 3rd floor. It was cramped and the ceiling was lower. As I crept along the dark hallway, a strange sound caught my attention from the far end, like metal scraping against something. My pulse quickened a bit, but I convinced myself it was probably just a mouse or the wind rattling through the old roof. But as I got closer, the noise grew sharper and clearer. At the end of the hall, there was a small room with the door slightly open. A faint glow from outside seeped in through a skylight. I crept closer, leaning forward to peek through the gap in the door. My heart nearly stopped when I saw 2 shadowy figures moving around inside the room. Both of them wore masks and were busy rifling through drawers and closets. One had a large cloth bag and was shoving stuff into it, while the other was prying open a skylight, probably how they'd gotten into the house. I stood frozen in place, barely daring to breathe. A whirlwind of thoughts raced through my mind. Should I run downstairs and warn everyone? But what if the burglars heard me and chased after me? Did they have weapons? While I was hesitating, one of them suddenly turned toward the door, toward me. Instinctively, I stepped backward, bumping into a small table behind me in the hallway. The lamp crashed onto the floor, shattering with a loud bang. In that instant, it felt like time froze completely. All noise inside the room ceased. Through the small gap, I saw 2 dark heads snap toward my direction. I had no choice but to bolt. I spun around and sprinted down the stairs. Behind me, I heard shouting and footsteps pounding. Furniture scraped loudly as they rushed out after me, closing in fast. My heart felt like it was about to burst right out of my chest, and I could barely catch my breath. As I raced down to the 2nd floor, I started shouting at the top of my lungs. "Burglar! There's a burglar in the house! Call the cops!" But the music was blaring so loudly that my voice just got drowned out. I kept bolting down the main staircase, the sound of footsteps still pounding after me. Then suddenly I heard a loud crash behind me, like someone had fallen hard. One of the burglars had tripped and tumbled down, landing motionless at the bottom of the 2nd floor stairs. By now, my yelling had finally gotten the attention of some people downstairs. The music abruptly stopped, and everyone rushed toward the stairs, confused and panicked. In the chaos, I tried to explain there were burglars up in the attic. A few guys quickly headed upstairs to check, while others called the police. The thief who'd fallen was still alive, but had a nasty head injury and couldn't move. The other guy had disappeared, probably escaping through the same skylight they'd used to break in. About 15 minutes later, the cops arrived. I had to repeat the whole story at least 3 different times to multiple officers. When they searched the attic, they found a bag stuffed with jewelry, watches, and cash the thieves had swiped. But the captured burglar refused to give up his partner. The party ended on a grim note. Marcus and I finally left sometime after midnight, once the cops had taken our statements and contact details. On the drive back, I couldn't shake the memory of the escaped burglar's masked face. The eyes staring at me through the black mask had been cold, calculating, and filled with hatred.
I'm Hal, 37, and I run a Taco Bell right on a busy street downtown. The place gets a ton of love, so I'm basically working around the clock. One night, around 10:30, I was about to shut down after a long 16-hour grind. Out of nowhere, a couple walked in looking all unsure. The guy went, "Hi, sorry, but can you hook us up with whatever food you've got left?" I was kind of confused, so I didn't reply right away. "We come from way far away, and your place is the only one open." So I was like, "Just hang on a sec." And I couldn't say no since they were customers, you know? It took me like 10 minutes to whip up 2 burritos, even though I didn't have all the ingredients. The couple was super grateful and dug into their food, and watching them enjoy it made me feel way less tired. I was just wandering around cleaning the cashier counter for a bit, and when I turned around, the woman was still munching while the guy was staring at me. I asked, kind of worried, "Is there something wrong with the food, man?" He smiled a bit and said, "Oh no, it's awesome." Usually when I get compliments like that from customers, I'm super happy. But the way the guy looked at me and smiled just gave me the creeps. The guy asked me, "Are you the owner of this place?" "Yes." "Great. Do you live by yourself?" I was like, "Yeah, I live just a few minutes away." I have no idea why I blurted that out without thinking or being careful. The guy got up, threw some cash on the table, and walked out, and the woman quickly jumped up and followed him. I didn't think much of it, just headed home to crash since my body was totally telling me to chill out. As I walked out of the bathroom all wet, I heard loud banging on the door and a woman's weak voice.
"Help me, please."
I froze for a few seconds before bolting to the door, while the woman kept banging and begging. I peeked through the peephole, and it was a woman in messed up clothes with crazy hair and a bunch of bruises all over her. I didn't open the door, but I asked, "What's wrong?" just to be safe.
"Let me in, please. He's about to catch up with me."
I got even more on edge and said, "I'm calling the police right now, just chill out."
"No, please don't call the police. Just let me in."
The woman got more and more freaked out, and her voice along with the banging on the door got faster and way more urgent. When I looked closer at the woman's face, I was shocked. It kind of felt like she was with that guy from earlier. For a few seconds, I caught a glimpse of anger in her eyes. I quickly grabbed my phone and said, "There's a woman in front of my house who needs..." The woman yelled,
"Don't call the cops,"
and punched the door. I jumped back a bit and the phone I was holding dropped. A few seconds later, along with the woman's wild scream for help, I heard another guy screaming,
"You're dead already, damn it!"
"Open the door quick, I'm begging you."
And then just like that, those scary sounds faded away. I hurried to the door and peeked through the peephole, but the woman was gone, and the guy was nowhere to be seen either. The sudden switch totally threw me off. I gripped the doorknob, caught between being scared and curious. There was an axe blade stuck in the door, like just a few millimeters from my forehead. I froze, and my heart felt like it stopped. The axe blade got pulled out, leaving a hole in the door, and this wild-eyed man said,
I want to taste your blood.
The next few axe hits were super hard on the door. The door was totally wrecked, and I was hiding in the kitchen cabinet, trying to hold my breath. They were coming in, the crazy, mean-looking guy and the woman. Just a little more, I muttered as the guy got close enough. About 10 minutes later, I was fine and sitting in the living room making a call. In front of me was the guy with a bullet deep in his shoulder, bleeding like crazy, and the woman crying and begging. Hey, I've got 2 fresh orders here. One for organs and the other, let's see, for entertainment. So, I ended up with a big chunk of money, enough to expand the shop and get the door fixed with the latest high-tech lock. My husband's back after being gone for 6 months, but I know it's not him. My husband Nathan's been gone for 6 months. Even with everything the police, family, and neighbors did, they hadn't found him. Not even a tiny clue. My family went through a serious mess, especially my mother-in-law. She had to go to the ER 4 times because she kept passing out. The calls from the police started slowing down, and the missing person flyers kept getting taken down and put back up because the weather messed them up. My family slowly had to accept that Nathan was gone. Then, out of nowhere, one day, my husband showed up while I was out in the yard taking care of the sunflowers. That was Nathan's favorite flower. I started planting them after he left. Now my husband's back, looking healthy and all, still wearing the same clothes he had on the day he disappeared. I was totally stunned. Couldn't tell if I was dreaming or if it was real, and I had no clue what I was feeling at that moment. Nathan ran over to hug me, yelling to get everyone in the family's attention. No surprise, my parents-in-law and 2 brothers-in-law were excited. Everybody was crying and smiling all at once, but honestly, I felt totally emotionless because I just knew this wasn't my husband. Only I could feel it, and only I knew it wasn't Nathan. I always had this weird feeling mixed with suspicion and caution. My family threw a party to welcome Nathan back and to thank God for bringing him home safe. We also invited the neighbors to the party. The kids were pumped for the party, running around everywhere with desserts in their hands. One of them ran into Nathan and got buttercream all over his shirt. Nathan just smiled, patted the kid's head, and patiently wiped the stain off. No, my husband had never been into kids, which is why we still don't have any after almost 10 years of being married. Where have you been all this time, Nathan? Everyone's missed you and been so worried, my mother-in-law said, getting all emotional at the party. My husband walked over, gently hugged my mom, and kissed her on the forehead. That had never happened before. He was never that affectionate. Mom, I'm here. I just ran into a little trouble. Then he suddenly turned to me with a slight smile. Well, maybe not just a little, Nathan hinted. So where have you been and what have you been up to? My father-in-law asked. I was in a really dark, freezing place, Dad. My job was fighting off the god of death and demons. Nathan laughed out loud after saying that, and everyone joined in thinking he was just really good at cracking jokes. As for me, I froze up. Felt like electricity was shooting through my nerves. Nathan's smile and eyes made me shake. I brought another test with a big smile on my face. Give it a try. I made it just to celebrate your return. Nathan grabbed the heart-shaped peanut butter cookie, popped it in his mouth, and chewed it up like it was the best thing ever. It's great, honey. I smiled awkwardly, because my husband's allergic to peanut butter. Just smelling it, he'd bolt like his life depended on it. This wasn't my husband. If anyone thinks that big events can change how people act and their habits, I totally agree. Those two signs weren't enough for me to be 100% sure, so I was still watching closely. Honey, can you grab me some sugar cubes? Since when did you start drinking tea with sugar? Didn't you always say that sugar ruins the real flavor of tea? Just a little. I want to try a new flavor. A little, Nathan said. 4 sugar cubes for a small cup of tea, which has never happened before. I opened up to Nathan about a bunch of stuff that went down. While you were gone, Santa was so worried. She kept going to the police station to check in about finding you. You must have had a rough time while I was away. Thank you so much. Nathan gave me a sweet kiss on the forehead and didn't say a thing when I mentioned Santa, my best friend and his little fling. If it were before, Nathan would have turned harsh every time I said Santa's name. He defended his girl no matter what. I knew that gross couple had been seeing each other for over 2 years, but I was set on not getting a divorce. I'm not leaving, and there's no way I'm splitting my stuff with anyone. Nathan hugged me, and when I caught a glimpse through the gap in his shirt with the top 2 buttons undone, my heart started racing. Nathan used to have a long scar on his left chest, but now, it's gone. I sat there looking at the person across from me. His face was familiar, but all I felt inside was suspicion and a weird vibe. What was even crazier was that my heart was just full of hate. Let's have kids, Nathan whispering in my ear totally surprised me. I cried and couldn't hold back my feelings. I got up from Nathan's arms, dashed into the room, and locked the door behind me. I had to sneak out tonight to dig up the sunflower pots in the backyard and see if he was still down there.
You can never imagine the feeling of losing someone you love in the blink of an eye, completely powerless, unable to do anything to save them. I've lived with that haunting fear. Every detail of that horrifying night still vividly appears in my mind. It was a vibrant sunset, as the sky turned a brilliant shade of orange-yellow, and gradually, darkness took over, enveloping the entire space. Kaylee and I went to the amusement park, a space bustling with the laughter and chatter of children and the lively music from the stalls. The colorful neon lights gradually lit up, sparkling and mesmerizing, like a place where you could forget all your worries. But behind that dazzling light was a strange feeling, a chilling sensation lingering in the air, as if the darkness was slowly consuming everything. I was filled with excitement, and his eyes seemed to light up at the sight of the thrilling rides. Completely opposite to Kaylee, she was hesitant and anxious as she looked up at the massive roller coaster speeding by. The thunderous sound of the roller coaster slicing through the air was accompanied by the screams of the riders. The roller coaster looked like a whirlwind, sweeping everything in its path. The flickering lights created moving shadows, like ghosts sweeping across the sky. I could clearly see Kaylee trembling slightly, her eyes wide open, staring at the terrifying loops. After a moment of persuasion, Kaylee agreed to join me in trying out the thrilling ride. The tension was evident on Kaylee's face as she saw the steep drops and the terrifying twists of the roller coaster. I held Kaylee's hand, squeezing it tightly, pulling her closer as if to pass on some courage. Kaylee's hand trembled, but she tried to smile. As we both sat down, Kaylee and I could feel the air grow tenser than ever. The safety bars were pulled down, and the click of the locks echoed in the space, filled with music and laughter. Kaylee took a deep breath, trying to calm herself, her eyes turning to me as if searching for reassurance. I smiled at Kaylee, but it was an absent-minded smile, as I had no idea what was about to happen. The roller coaster began to move, carrying its passengers up high. The sound of the wheels grinding on the tracks echoed, the metal scraping against each other, each noise like a stabbing knife. The roller coaster accelerated, speeding through the twisting loops. The wind howled in my ears, and the piercing screams echoed all around. My heart pounded, and I felt my stomach twist in knots. Each loop of the roller coaster felt like an unending curse, the sensation of a floating followed by a rapid plunge, as fast as lightning. Each second felt like it stretched on forever, and then, suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the air. The roller coaster came to a sudden halt without warning. The sound of metal ceased, and everything plunged into thick darkness. The blinding lights of the amusement park also went out, leaving behind an eerie silence. The surrounding space seemed to freeze, with only the sound of heavy breathing and the frantic screams of the passengers. The darkness around us made it impossible to see anything. A sense of unease surrounded us, and Kaylee's safety harness began to shake, as if it wasn't secure enough to hold her in place. She grabbed my arm tightly, whispering in a panic, "Ethan, my body feels like it's about to fall." I turned to her, just as my hand was about to reach Kaylee. Before I could say anything to her, suddenly, a horrifying sound echoed, the clink of metal colliding, the sound of an impending end. Kaylee's safety harness suddenly snapped open. I still remember that moment clearly. Everything seemed to slow down, happening right before my eyes, yet I couldn't do anything to stop it. Kaylee's face was pale with fear, her eyes wide open in hopelessness. Kaylee fell from her seat, plunging into the dark, undefined void. The feeling of total loss of control, her limbs thrashing in desperation as Kaylee's body fell freely. I reached out, trying to grab Kaylee, but I only touched the air. The wind swept Kaylee away, taking her into the cold darkness with no sound, no words of farewell. The screams from Kaylee and me echoed, filled with pain. Kaylee was gone, and all that remained was the hopeless emptiness within me. The screams, the cries for help, the chaos that followed all faded in my mind. The only image that remained was the moment Kaylee fell, and it haunted me. The cold feeling of watching someone you love being consumed by darkness, unable to do anything but witness it. After a while, the rescue team finally arrived to save the trapped passengers. They used flashlights and loudspeakers to reassure everyone while trying to fix the power outage. The roller coaster was gradually brought down, and one by one, the passengers were taken out of their safety seats. But there was no Kaylee. Her absence created a void that could never be filled. I was taken out of the roller coaster, but I completely shut down, unresponsive. My eyes were empty, my face pale, and I seemed to have no energy left. I couldn't utter a word, no screams left, only a deathly silence that engulfed my soul. In the weeks that followed, I was like a shadow, drifting in pain and loss. I refused to meet with friends, no longer caring about the things I once loved. Every night I was haunted by nightmares, the image of Kaylee being consumed by darkness and her screams echoing in my head endlessly. A few weeks later, I returned to the amusement park. I stood under the roller coaster, my vacant eyes gazing up at the place where Kaylee had been consumed by the darkness. The neon lights still sparkled, the upbeat music continued to play, and the laughter of children still echoed. But for me, Everything had become a painful memory that could never be erased. There was no more joy, no more laughter. There was only a terrifying silence, a lingering obsession, something that could never be erased.
I am Wade, 29 years old. I just quit my job at my old company because I didn't see myself growing there, and I wanted something more. After taking some time off and looking for a new gig, I was happy to pick between two companies in Florida. I love this state because I get to travel around here and visit family. The weather in Florida always makes me feel comfy and good vibes. The two companies I interviewed with were pretty good, and I was really excited about the chance to live and work in Florida. My finances weren't great at the time, so I decided to drive to Florida on my own for the interview. Time was tight, so I drove through the night to get to Florida in the morning and hit the interview that afternoon. I threw on a podcast story and swapped out the car's air freshener. Kicking things off with a positive vibe made me feel chill, not scared of the dark or the empty highway. All I could see on the road was my car's headlights cutting through the mist and the trees swaying in the shadows. A few hours later, I saw a guy on the side of the road, driving the same way I was. He was dressed in all black, just standing there next to his car that was turned off. The light was pretty low, so I couldn't make out his face. As I got closer, I felt like he was staring at me. In that moment, I thought about stopping to see if he was okay. But then, my actions didn't match my thoughts, and I just hit the gas and drove straight ahead. About 10 minutes later, I saw another guy standing there by himself. This guy didn't have any other cars around him. I thought something had happened to him, so I decided to pull over. When the car stopped and I turned to look, he was gone. My heart skipped a beat, and I looked around, trying to figure out where he went. There was a little trail nearby, heading into the dark woods. Could he have run into it? But why so fast? I started getting more suspicious about the guy in the black suit, feeling freaked out, so I just took off. I tried to calm myself down, but the image of the guy in the black suit kept popping into my head. I decided to stop at a Denny's for a break, thinking some food and a rest would make me feel better. I was enjoying my sandwich when my eyes drifted to the window, and suddenly, I got chills all over. The guy in the black suit was standing outside, staring right at me. He just stood there, silent and still, with those dark, empty eyes staring through the glass. I felt my blood run cold, and my breathing got heavy. I couldn't sit there any longer, so I grabbed my coffee, rushed out of the shop, and hustled to my car. I slammed the door shut, my hands shaking as I shoved the key in the ignition and hit the gas, speeding out of the parking lot. I drove for a few more hours and didn't see any more guys. Slowly, I started to feel a lot better. Maybe it was just a coincidence, and I was overthinking it. But when I accidentally glanced at the rearview mirror, I almost stopped breathing. The guy in the black suit was sitting in the back seat of my car. My heart was pounding. I screamed in panic and hit the gas. The car shot forward. I almost lost control, fumbling and freaking out trying to find the brake. I jumped out of the car, yanked open the back door, but there was no one there. The guy was gone, like he'd never been there. I looked around, scanning the quiet night, but all I could hear was the wind whistling through the trees. I felt like I was losing it, not able to make sense of what was going on. Scared and freaked out, I decided to drive to a nearby motel to crash for the night. I needed to calm down, just a safe place to think it all through. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every little sound freaked me out. I just wanted morning to come fast so I could get out of there. The next morning, I left the motel super early, drove straight to the city, and stayed away from all the empty roads. When I got to my first interview, I still felt pretty anxious. I walked into the room, and my heart nearly stopped when I saw the recruiter. He, the guy sitting in front of me, had the exact same face as the guy in the black suit I'd seen on the street. I was frozen, barely able to believe what I was seeing. Fear hit me hard, and I couldn't focus on the interview. My mind went blank, and my words came out all messed up. I totally bombed that interview. But more than anything, I felt like I was losing it. I was totally confused, not getting what was happening to me. I tried to chill out before the second interview. This time, there was no weird guy like that, so I was able to do better. Now I'm all about working on myself and my career, living the life I wanted in Florida. Little by little, I convinced myself it was all just a coincidence. Maybe I was just so stressed and anxious about the interview that I fixated on the guy in the black suit. A few days ago, I read an article about the company I bombed the interview for going bankrupt, where the recruiter had a face just like that mysterious guy I saw on the highway. The company had been dodging taxes for years and finally got busted going bankrupt. The recruiter, Mark, was arrested for harassing women, and according to the police, it wasn't his first offense. But at night, when I'm sitting alone, I still can't help but wonder, was it really all in my head? Or was there some kind of miracle that helped me dodge the danger? I don't like April Fool's Day. It's like a double-edged sword. On one side, there's laughter, and on the other side, a tragedy ready to strike. But that only happened after I turned 16, the age of recklessness and stupid ideas that come to mind without any mental filter. I typed a message in excitement and sent it to my friends. Guys, my dad is on his way to the hospital. A few seconds later, my phone buzzed nonstop with worried messages from my friends. I sat down, laughing to myself, enjoying the harmless prank. I thought to myself, it's just a joke, feeling self-satisfied. That afternoon, I sat on the couch, my eyes glued to the flickering TV screen. The game sucked me into another world, where real-life problems never reached. My mom was asleep in the back room after her long shift, while I was immersed in virtual missions. My dad walked into the room, his tall figure looking thinner than before. He asked me about my mom's phone charger. I pointed toward the table without taking my eyes off the screen. He stood there for a moment, then turned and walked away. A few seconds later, I heard heavy breathing. I didn't pay attention until I realized the breathing had stopped. I was in the middle of an intense part of the game, so I didn't think much of it. The breathing came again, faster, weaker. A part of me began to feel something was wrong, but my curiosity couldn't resist the allure of the game. My eyes never left the screen. Then the silence enveloped the room. I turned around, and my dad was standing by the table, his hand gripping his chest, his eyes wide open but eerily empty. He was holding his chest as if trying to grab onto something invisible that was leaving his body. I don't clearly remember how I reacted. I only know that I rushed to him, calling his name, shaking his thin shoulders, but his body fell like a tree chopped down. I screamed, and my mom immediately woke up and rushed out of the room, her face filled with panic. We tried to move my dad to the living room. I called 911, my hands shaking so much that I almost dropped the phone. The operator's voice came through, CPR immediately. My mom, certified in CPR, knelt down and started chest compressions, counting each rhythm. I watched her hands press down on my dad's chest, but his body remained motionless, and I felt utterly useless. My dad's eyes opened slightly, but it wasn't the look I was used to, warm and strong. What I saw was emptiness, swallowing me whole. The sirens of the ambulance tore through the suffocating silence. They took him away, but deep inside, I knew. I knew that my dad would never come back the way he was. At the hospital, the doctor came out with a serious expression. Heart attack, he said, his voice low but unmistakably sure. The chances of survival were very low, and my mom broke down in tears. I sat there, my hands clenched so tightly that my nails dug into my skin. My dad passed away early the next morning. In the days that followed, I couldn't take my eyes off the gaming console. The screen was black, but I stared at it, as though it held the answer to the pain gnawing at me. I no longer saw the characters in the game. I saw my dad standing there, one hand clutching his chest, his eyes empty. I heard his heavy breathing repeating in my head. I had been there, right in the living room, just a few steps away from him. But I wasted those last moments of his life on a game. That April Fool's Day was no longer a day for jokes. It became the day I lost the most important man in my life, and I couldn't do anything to change it. My name's Pamela. I am 23 years old, the eldest of 4 siblings. I have a younger sister, Aurora, 17 years old, and 2 brothers, Vincent, 11 years old, and Peter, 6 years old. 4 of us are very close-knit. We genuinely love each other with all our hearts. Our parents always teach us about family values. One of them, the most important of them, is caring and forgiving. We resided in a small town around Fairfield, Alabama. I dropped out from college to go to work to support my family. We were facing tough time, made worse by my mother's sudden paralysis. She must use the wheelchair at all time and must rely on others' support. Her arms were gradually weakened as well. To my mom, seeing her family enjoying the dinner she cooked up had always been her life's ultimate goal. And yet, ever since her ailment, the light of her life became dimmer and dimmer. I had done many types of work, mostly part-time, so I could do multiple at once and could spend more time taking care of my mom. My 3 younger siblings were very understanding and would never throw a tantrum like many kids their age. After school, they would stay home and help with the chores. As my mom's condition gradually worsened, it was harder for her to do anything by herself, hence the need for us to leave her with a chiming bell so she could alert us if there's anything she needed. We all knew the drills. Bell ringing meant mom's needing. It's general quarter for all of us. After a while, my mom started to act strangely. She was easily agitated being alone. At that time, she would be very aggressive, cussing everything she could. My pops setting up an indoor CCTV system so we could monitor her every time she was alone. Many times we saw her pointing fingers and yelling. She demanded angrily that someone better left her family alone. Normally after anger came fear. She would then plead that someone let us be in peace.
Who should I send? You said, here am I, send me.
Every time we're seeing my mom did that, it made me shudder because she was by herself and seemingly talking to herself the whole time. It's likely the ailments had taken their tolls on her mental health as well. It made us cry seeing her struggling like that, and every one of us could only do our best and pray and hope that it'd help her. There was one time when Pops got to work overtime, and so Mom's alone. I offered to go spend the night in her room to be sure she's okay. She declined, stating that there's something important must be done by her alone tonight. Around midnight, I was jolted awake hearing my mom's chiming bell. As the children was soundly sleeping, I decided to go to her room alone. Her door was half opened, so it didn't take me much to push it in, and seeing the unbelievable sight before me. My mom was standing on her 2 legs, right there over the opening window. After many years of paralysis, by some magical way, she was able to walk again. She let out to me a happy smile. I was happy too. It seems all the prayers to our Lord and Savior was finally answered. But as soon as I stepped in closer, I saw my mom lying on her bed. Okay, so who or what was standing on the windows? I looked at my mother on the bed, and my mother at the windows. What the? Suddenly, the window mother gentle, happy smile turned into a sinister one. Even her teeth seemed to morph into inhuman, needle-sharp teeth, the one that I remembered from the dinosaur movies. I yelped aloud at the sight, only to wake up, panting. I suddenly stumbled back to my room, where my 3 siblings were still sleeping on their shared bunks. What a relief. It was all but a dream. As soon as I sat down, a loud bang could be heard from outside, and some hard object broke through our windows. The 4 of us sprang up and ducked behind the furniture. I grabbed Vincent and told him to phone Dad, telling him that we're under some kind of attack. I hugged Peter tightly. He's in a lot of panic, but bravely resisted crying about it. But when I looked over the window, it was my mom's wheelchair, broken into pieces. And the thing that broke open our window was, in fact, the device's front wheel. We rushed to her room on the 2nd floor. When we pushed the door in, my mom's at the window, smiling at us. I shuddered, thinking about the previous nightmare, despite my siblings' joy at her improvement. I moved quickly into my mom's bed and saw nobody was there, so the person there was indeed my mother. But before we were able to say anything, my mom had plunged herself out of the window. One more time, a loud bang was heard from outside. We were too stunned to move. We knew exactly what that bang was. Aurora cried out in pain, then fainted. I hugged Peter tightly, trying to shut his eyes and ears. Vincent came over Aurora. We couldn't comprehend what had just happened. The scene of my mom's bloodied corpse hit my pops hard. It's like a part of his soul left his body that day, never to return. He couldn't accept her passing, that my mom's deliberately left her family behind. He never again stepped foot into the bedroom again. Instead, went down to the couches in the living room. The 4 of us children, also haunted by my mom's action, dared not venture to the master bedroom ever again. However, I often heard my mom's chiming bell. At first, I thought it was just hallucinations from my fatigue and pain. But more and more the bell chimed, and I was unable to let it go anymore. At midnight, once again, the bells chiming one more time. This time, Peter woke up as well, and he cried looking at me. "Mom's coming back for us, sis." What did he meant by mom's coming back for us? So I took him to the master bedroom. I turned on all the lights before going in further. Peter held my hands tight. I came over to my mom's chiming bell, then managed to shut it off. And at that point, I saw an old paper underneath it. I could read my mom's handwriting upon it. The pact with Satan. I read the contract with fear slowly building up, to the point that I unintentionally squeezed hard on Peter's little hand. I hugged Peter tightly upon finishing it. It made me shudder at the thought of my mom's thoughtless past. Now I understood why she had done things like that before. About 30 years ago, my mom and pop married, but they couldn't have any children. So mom made a pact with Satan, so that the 4 of us would be here, and we'll get a happy life. However, upon the contract, she must sacrifice the youngest child by the 7th birthday. My mom, of course, couldn't let that happen, and she used herself to break the contract. She always said that nothing could break apart the power of love. That's why I decided to keep the discovery hidden from my family. Nobody deserved to know about it. Make their hearts fat and their ears heavy, shut their eyes, and be healed. One day when I woke up, the 3 of us couldn't see Peter anywhere, until when we got to the backyard, whereupon we saw a small wooden crate. Inside that crate was Peter, huddled in fetal position, still asleep. I woke him up, only to have him said that he must have fell asleep upon finding this crate yesterday. Right now, I was in a lot of panic. I did not dare thinking of what would happen next. Just 3 days later, Peter would be 7 years old. In 3 days, Peter, my youngest brother, and the one I love the most, would turn 7. Every hour, every minute, it felt like a countdown clock was ticking in my head, and every tick was like a knife stabbing right into my heart. What I read in my mom's letter was still stuck in my head. The deal with the devil, and the price she agreed to pay to have us. I would never forget how Peter looked at me when he glanced up from the wooden box in the backyard that morning. The innocent look on his face made me feel like I was being crushed. How was I supposed to protect him from something not even from this world? The next few nights, I didn't dare to sleep. I just lay there, listening to every little sound in the house. The night before Peter's birthday, my mom's bell rang again. This time, it didn't stop for a second. It just kept ringing, like someone was trying to warn me. I decided to confront it. I grabbed the bell, walked to the window, and screamed in frustration and hopelessness. I didn't know who I was calling to, but I begged for help. Anything that would save Peter. When I came back to the room, I saw Peter sitting in the middle of the bed, his eyes blank, and his mouth muttering something I couldn't understand. My whole body froze. Those words weren't Peter's. They were cold, eerie, and evil. I rushed to hug him, holding him tight, praying that my mom would help me again, like she had before. The next morning, when everyone woke up, Peter was completely normal. There was no sign of that awful night, but I knew it was just the calm before the storm. I stayed by Peter's side all day, never taking my eyes off him for a second. On Peter's birthday, I could feel the air in the house getting colder. This time, the bell rang loud, like each sound was a scream. I grabbed Peter's hand tight, my eyes fierce. If Satan wanted my brother, he'd have to go through me first. The whole house shook, the windows flew open, and the cold wind rushed in like knives cutting through flesh. I stood in front of Peter screaming as loud as I could. But then, I saw a warm light from the corner of the room. My mom appeared. She still had that gentle smile I remembered, her eyes full of determination. My mom reached out to me, like she was saying everything would be all right. Then she turned around, facing the darkness that was coming. Her light spread through the room, wiping out all the evil. When the light went out, my mom disappeared. Peter hugged me, crying his eyes out. I knew my mom had sacrificed herself one last time to protect us. I sat there, my hands shaking as I held the bell, tears falling nonstop. We had lost our mom for good, but she had saved our family. And I, no matter what, was gonna keep my promise to protect Peter and the others, so nothing could hurt them again.
My name's Gail, 32 years old. I am a nurse practitioner in a clinic of the city of Omaha. I'm a single mother of a 7-year-old son, Alex. For 7 years, ever since Alex was born, I had not had a single good night's sleep. It's always the nightmare that I encountered every single night. The nightmare that brought me back to the horrifying accident 7 years ago. The cargo truck, flashing its high beams, coming right at me. The speed of the collision was truly out of this world. The concussive forced me in and out of consciousness, constantly shifted between crimson red of adrenaline surge and blackened tunnel vision. I'm slowly losing my grip on reality before the last minutes, throwing a glance at my husband before everything turned black. I was lucky to be alive. However, my husband wasn't. The day my husband finally passed away would also be the day my poor son Alex was born. It's like fate had cruelly made him an orphan before he was even born. Alex was a spitting image of his father. He's nimble, quick on his feet, and incredibly clever. However, raising Alex wasn't an easy task for me. He, as you can say it, was rather strange. You see, in his room was the miniatures of the creatures that I'd say wasn't very pretty or downright child-friendly at any bit. He constantly lived in his own world where there's monsters and demons, with the protagonist came to the rescue of such world. At one night when I was asleep, I suddenly felt a nightmare pounding hard upon my chest, smothering me. Jolted awake by a sudden huge shadow, I let out a loud scream. However, After settling down, I realized my son Alex, who told me he's just seen a demon. I hugged him tightly to console my son. After around 20 minutes, the drowsiness came to him and he fell asleep. Looking at my son's face, I thought of his father, my late husband, and couldn't contain my tears anymore. I wish he was still here, with Alex, with me, where I wouldn't be that alone in this world. The next morning, Alex was nowhere in sight. I came downstairs, making breakfast as usual, before calling him down. After a while, Alex appeared up the stairs, his hand holding a twisted wooden toy. That'd be the demon slayer he'd just spent time making, surely about its effect upon the demons. "I will save you from the demons, Mom." His words meant the world to me, no matter how silly it sounded. Around noon, when I was working in the clinic, I received a call from Alex's school. The headmistress and homeroom teacher was there at the office, waiting for me. The homeroom teacher told me that Alex was a notoriously rebellious student. With the new weapon he carried might endanger the other students. The stories Alex told his classmates would made the class not able to feel safe around him. Even worse, this morning, Alex physically assaulted one of the female students in his PE class. As if the job and sleepless nights weren't bad enough, now this was the one that truly broke my camel's back. I excused myself from work and school, taking Alex home early with me. On the way home, Alex refused every question I threw at him, answering it with utter silence. I tried my best not to get mad, yet I believed it did show to the boy. "She said I'm a fatherless spine," Alex finally spilled out. Lowered his voice as if he's saying things that weren't supposed to be said. I bursted my tears out at the saying of my boy, hugging him tightly. That night, I managed to cook the dishes he liked the most. Hopefully it'd make him feel better. That's it. I'll change his school so that he'll have a better academic environment. That night, I went over to his room for a sleepover. Looking at his bookshelf, it's a surprise that I realized it's now full of books. It's been a while since the last time I cleaned out his room. So as a treat, I told him to pick one so I could read him a bedtime story. Alex, after attentively looking at his collection, brought out a red cover one with the title, "The Joker's Pranks." Alex leaned his head over my lap, eagerly waiting for his long-time-coming bedtime story, read by his mom. There was once a joker, always funny, loved to joke around with his usual laughter. His hobby was to hide from the shadow, making pranks to laugh at everyone around him. At first the details were rather mild, and I loved watching my son attentively listening to the story he liked. But the more I dug into it, the more and more violent and creepy the details became. So I decided to end the story there for another book. Alex at first threw a tantrum in protest, yet against my stern expression, he could only frown. The next morning, I spent time reading about the Joker's book. The Joker will always be there behind you. He'll show you the hints, pranks you along the way. He will eventually possess your body and soul, passing on with the Joker's spirit. Okay, now that was enough, I thought to myself before I put the book away, hid it somewhere completely out of Alex's reach. A few days later, when I was just about to sleep, Alex slammed on my door, barging in. Mom, I just saw that Joker in my room," he said. Okay, now what? I brought my son closer so he could calm himself down. Alex then proceeded to describe the Joker, exactly like the one in that creepy book, even though I was sure he'd never read that at all. Okay, that's enough nonsense for tonight, Alex. Mommy wants you to return to your room and sleep. Alex was angry that I didn't believe him, yet he still followed my order and returned to his room, though not without any discomfort. I was not able to sleep again that night. Later the following morning, I prepped up his favorite pumpkin soup for breakfast. He was still angry at me, yet not showing it fully. During breakfast, Alex told me about his friend's birthday party this evening and would like me to go there with him. Of course, I agreed with him and assured him that I would arrange my work to go with him. After breakfast, I discovered many small glass shards in my soup. It was scary. I almost inhaled it. So I told Alex to stop, that I could check on his bowl whether there was any glass shards. Fortunately, there wasn't any. But at that very moment, I'm starting to wonder whether it was one of Alex's creepy pranks. "I didn't do it, Mom. It must be the Joker's prank. He'll show you the hints, pranks you along the way." Alex reminding me of the crazy Joker story. It was crazy, so I lost my cool and did yell at him. He bursted out crying and ran back to his room. I cleaned up the breakfast in frustration. How could my own son do this to me? Within my mouth was a small glass shard. I spat it out and could clearly feel the metallic stench of my blood. I returned to my room, trying to rest for a bit to make up for the previous sleepless night. On the nightstand was a picture of me and my husband, taken when I was still carrying Alex with my tummy. In the picture, however, my husband was redrawn into a Joker, making me feel that I am hugging such a miserable creature. Finally, at the boiling point, I carried the picture into Alex's room, questioning the boy. He insisted to never do such a thing, leaving me frustrated. Exhaustion combining with constant sleep deprivation left me in a very bad mood. So all I could do would be to sit in my room, thinking about everything that's happening. Suddenly, Alex yelped aloud, snapped me back from the thought flow. I could hear him sobbing and shaking very bad, though I couldn't see him anywhere in his room. It turned out he's hiding under his bed, constantly talking about closing all the doors and windows, barring the Joker from entering the home. I ran back to my room in a furious state, tore the book about the Joker into pieces, threw them all into the trash can. Later that night, the two of us dressed ourselves up for the birthday party. On our way there, I told him to stop mentioning everything about the Joker from here on out. He agreed. At the party, Alex joyfully went over playing with his friends while the mothers gathered around the living room, chatting. Emily's mom, the party holder, told us that there would be a clown hired to bring gifts for the children at the end of the party as part of the surprise. I'm feeling unwell at the mention about the clown. Right next to the children was a man dressed up in a clown outfit. That must be the surprise Emily's mom mentioned about. In just a few seconds, when I glanced back to the children, the man in the clown outfit was no longer there, but instead a horrible monster with bloodied fangs and claws trying to devour the children. Instinctively, I came charging at the creature with everything I could hold on to, bashing its head with the glass of wine I happened to come across. A loud yell rang in the air and I snapped myself from the bloodthirst. I was attacking a party guest instead. Needless to say, Alex and I was ordered out of the party. On our way home, Alex only stared at me with his innocent eyes, not knowing why I was acting out like that. He looked up to me to be his role model, and yet I failed him. I couldn't stop crying. Back home, Alex went upstairs without saying any word. Later, he came downstairs telling me that there's the Joker laughing at him on his bed. I was too tired to say anything else. Everything around me swung wildly into a frenzy whirlwind. I yelled aloud, trying to let out all the frustration I had been keeping all along. Getting myself together, I dragged my exhausted feet toward the kitchen table. When I managed to open up the drawer, I could clearly see Alex within it, chopped into pieces. I yelped aloud, only to see my other hand holding the bloodied knife still warm from all the flowing crimson red liquid. I fell to the ground, and suddenly, it turned out to be just another livid nightmare I was facing. I need to find my son quickly to make sure he's well, okay, and unharmed. The next morning, I'd clean up the house and burn that Joker's book away. Take Alex for a joyride. Booking a flight back to my old home in Minneapolis with his grandparents. Then the boy will be free from all those monsters and demons and jokers haunting us too. I'll have Alex staying there with my grandparents. He would have a beautiful childhood, surrounded by all the lovely relatives and friends. I would return to Omaha, continuing my work as well as undergoing the psychiatric treatment at the hospital. There was no Joker at all. It's all in my head, manifest from the pain and exhaustion. It can't rain every day. It won't rain forever. The sunshine might be gone, but it will shine again after my life's been better.